Ever since the release of Snow White by the Walt Disney Company, we have all witnessed the box office disaster that it is, by far one of the worst nightmares that Disney actually had to go through, not just in 2025, but also within at least the past 15 years. We know that this movie had an overlong budget, we know that there was way too much money being poured into this thing, we know that the whole Rachel Zegler and Gal drama behind the scenes, and even in the public eye, created a lot of problems, not just for the Disney Company, but it also really impacted the overall career of Rachel Zegler and why it imploded over, of course, at the film industry within Hollywood as a whole. And we already know that at the same exact time, ahead of the release of this movie on Disney+, things are only going out of control yet again. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, like I said, we already know that this movie is one of the biggest disasters by Disney. They spent well over $300 million on this thing, and also, factoring in their marketing expenses and reshoots that they had to, of course, pour more funds into. This was a very expensive movie, and it really had little to no return. They really barely broke even at all, not even close. And when you look at the overall metrics, when you look at the numbers, it just goes to show you that there was really no demand for this movie. Nobody was asking for this. Nobody was asking for a complete, DEI-driven version of the film that shifts away from source material, from the Brothers Grimm tales, from the 1937 original, etc., etc. However, this is where it really begins to actually get crazy. We know that Rachel Zegler is still not taking the criticism very well, even after, a month and a half coming out of this movie, once it actually was vanished from all movie theater chains. Now, with Disney preparing to release Snow White on Disney Plus by late June or early July at this point, after it was a box office nightmare, one significant development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler going off against the critics yet again in a desperate move to salvage Snow White as much as possible ahead of the Disney Plus debut. Zegler recently delivered the following. Looking back, I don't think our film Snow White got a fair shot at the theaters. There was an obvious political bias there. And that's the current state of this country, when you have one side boycotting a film, something from the arts, in this case film, over political beliefs. It truly is disgraceful coming from the people and so many families. The success of a movie should have nothing to do with its box office numbers or its financial status, but the story itself is all that matters. I say, so what if we shifted away from source material? So what if we changed up the backstory and background of Snow White and how she got her name, and how she's considered the fairest of them all in this iteration? We needed to change all of that to fit the modern woman, to get with the times, and I firmly believe that we were successful. It's just that we had a silent majority who were unwilling to stand up and defend our work of art. There is an obvious silent majority out there, because everyone I talk to, all the families that I know personally, absolutely love this film, and they deserve another one as far as I'm concerned. Now guys, let me stop right there for a second. That just goes to show you how narcissistic Rachel Zegler really is. Because of the families that she knows, because of her social circle, however tight that social circle really is, because of that one reason, there's a silent majority out there. There's a silent majority of millions upon millions of people that are afraid to speak their mind. We all know that's not the case. We know that the majority spoke up. We know that the majority, of course, was against this movie. It's exactly why families boycotted it, wanted nothing to do with Snow White, because of the typical Disney messaging. And that's all there is to it. That's basically what it all boiled down to. And here she goes again, yet again, going against, of course, the critics over DEI. She goes, diversity, equity, and inclusion, she says, is used now as a talking point for the right. That when we support something like that, we are made out to be the bad guys, as if we are doing something so wrong for the art of film and entertainment. They really are getting that backwards, because DEI is exactly what is needed in this industry, and should be looked at as the priority above all storytelling as the backbone of a film or television show. It's that simple. Because when you embrace diversity, as we did in Snow White, you gravitate to so many others around the globe, and different communities. You make your film relatable. So I don't want to hear it from the right when they label DEI as a form of a message that is pushed or forced. Again, guys, let me just say one thing about Zegler. I think that this is not only one of the most insufferable things that she's saying about Snow White, that she's saying about the critics over Snow White, and those that were against the typical Disney messaging, but this is also coming across as Zegler coping very hard with the fact that she is basically at, of course, rock bottom within her career at this point. We know that no major Hollywood studio wants to give her a major motion picture deal. She's actually only getting very minor roles for very minor movies right now that have a very small budget. The Marissa Tomei movie, by the way, it's only going to have a couple of $1 million going into that thing and will only debut in limited theaters. Alright, that goes to show you exactly what kind of roles Rachel Zegler is getting at in 2025. So again, this just goes to show you that Disney overall, they really screwed up big time with Snow White. Not just by hiring Rachel Zegler, but by keeping her hired, and also, of course, not canceling this movie ahead of time. If they really wanted to, they could have, gotten rid of this movie a year and a half ago. They could have backgirled the thing. They could have took the loss. Absolutely, they could have done that. However, she goes on to conclude, it's just common sense, whether people like that or not, whether they want to agree with that or not. It is what it is, common sense, and we did that for Snow White, and it's something I will be forever proud for. Getting the chance to work with Gal, all I can say is that it wasn't what I expected, and I will leave it at that for now, but we had so much pressure for this film. Both Aaron, Greta, and Mark, she's talking about the creators, knew, and I brought this up to them, that we had to change the source material from 1937 as an original. We knew this would upset one half of the country because of political reasons. It was just obvious. We saw it coming. I think people really needed to learn the value of DEI, and the only way to reach that to people is through film or television. It is what it is, and as an actress who has been unfairly criticized, I stand by that forever. So again, she's basically admitting that, yeah, they did do, the typical Disney messaging, by blatantly saying the only way to reach DEI to the people is by doing it through film and television. I don't know how you could say that's not an agenda, because that's the epitome of an agenda right there. DEI is an agenda, and look, we know that Rachel Zegler, Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, and among others like Greta Gerwig have said this before in the past, that DEI is not an agenda, it's not a message, there's no ulterior motive there, there's no actual, shoehorning going on, or anything to do with, kind of really tainting a pop culture figure. That never happened, when in reality it did. We know that Disney single-handedly destroyed the character of Snow White, and that's exactly where they are right now in 2025. That is exactly why it's going to fail miserably on Disney+. We know that they are preparing to debut this thing by late June or early July at the latest. And it's going to be quite interesting to see how it performs on streaming via Disney's platform. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about Zegler really going off the rails yet again, and really trying to promote this movie for Disney Plus at all costs available. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.